Did you know the FBI believes there are as many as 25 serial killers active at any given time? However, the Murder Accountability Project believes that number to be closer to 2,000. Welcome. I'm Jay.
I'm T.
We are Fatal Blend.
This is where we talk about two things we absolutely love. A little bit of coffee and a lot of true crime. Specifically, serial killers.
Yes, we do.
Yep, we do.
And here we are again.
Mm-hmm.
As usual.
And again, we're recording multiple episodes in a row because we've got Jay going out of town for work again. And then we go to Tennessee for a Christmas trip with the fam. So we have to pre-record a bunch of shit.
And then for the people who celebrate Christmas.
Yeah, and then we got Christmas. So we're going to pre-record a bunch so that we can kind of enjoy the holidays.
As everybody else should as well. So out there in radio land, listening podcasting land. Enjoy your time with your family. Enjoy your time by yourself if you want to. But
and if you don't
enjoy
celebrate,
your time.
If you don't celebrate, take the damn time to celebrate yourself. Take the time to celebrate yourself and your family anyways.
Celebrate
Just for fun.
to celebrate. And what are you drinking today?
Oh, today I found a new iced coffee thing. I was very on the fence about it, but my daughter, she got me to try it. And so I'm drinking a sugar-free gingerbread white chocolate mocha, but it's not really mocha. White chocolate mocha iced coffee, but the coffee I used is Javi coffee. It's a coffee concentrate, which I totally was like, never. And then she had me try it, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. This changes the iced coffee game.
Game changer.
So I now probably will never make an iced coffee without using Javi again, but I'm not using Javi for hot coffee because I have an espresso machine and a Keurig. But, you know, the iced coffee gets watered down when you use the hot drinks, right? Or the hot espresso or the hot coffee. I would make like coffee ice cubes to kind of counteract that. But sometimes I was a little too much and it was just a bummer. And so this coffee concentrate totally changes everything because it's cold. You know, like you can use it cold. You just pour it in your cup. You mix in whatever you're going to mix in, put some ice in it, and you're good to go. And it doesn't get watered down. So that's what I'd be drinking.
You know, speaking of coffee ice cubes, I was kind of thinking the ice makers you can buy for at home, like the countertop ones.
Yeah.
I wonder if you were to make coffee and pour it in there, if you would make coffee ice cubes.
I doubt it because it's hot. I mean, you'd have to have cold coffee.
Well, yeah, you would let the coffee sit, like put it in the fridge, let it
I'm
cool,
sure
and
you
then
could.
put it in there.
I've definitely seen on like TikTok when people are trying to sell them, they will show like coffee ice cube, or not coffee. They will show ice cubes that are like Kool-Aid ice cubes where they take juice and they Kool-Aid. But that would completely destroy those because we've had 2 of those.
Yeah,
they mold over.
So
and no matter
fast.
how many times I clean it, it always molds over. So I don't know if I'm just an idiot because I feel like everybody else has these ice machines and they have no problems.
Maybe they just don't see the mold.
I don't know, man. I want one so bad, but I'm like, absolutely not. I can't trust it.
I was thinking, you know, like the nugget ice cubes.
Yeah.
People love to eat the nugget ice cubes.
I don't think I'd want to eat coffee ice cubes.
I was just saying. Like,
I don't know, man. The coffee ice cubes, they're good, but I don't know if I'd want to eat coffee ice cubes. But that's kind of where it's at. So.
Yeah, well, I'm not drinking coffee today because we are recording at night, and it is cold here.
Not
I decided
that cold. I literally have like a jacket and pants on. Like we're not in like Antarctica.
House. No, but when your temperature starts with a 3, it's cold.
I mean, okay, as for the time of year, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
You're right, but not cold enough for me to be drinking bunches of hot coffee.
Cold enough to where I wouldn't be drinking iced coffee. So
I would.
But that's because you're weird.
No, I'm not.
Anyways, weirdo. I'm drinking a hot apple cider.
Yep.
which never was a fan growing up, but as I get older, it's great.
Because you're a grandpa.
Mm-hmm. I like to
Your
mix in
grandpa.
my Ensure with my apple cider. Put it down.
Yeah.
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 I take my pills with it. I am at the
So
age now where
embarrassing.
I do talk to my friends that are my age and older. We do talk about how cool, like when cool pill compartments come out.
We don't actually. You do. We, the people that are
I
collective.
said I.
No, you said we, like as if
No.
you and everybody your age
I said I
does
talk
that.
to my friends.
Yeah,
and we.
Exactly. I'm saying we. No,
as not me and you.
I
as
understand.
me and my friends.
No, sir. I'm saying we, as in people our age, are not doing that.
Yes,
it's
they
just
are.
you. Like
No.
I don't know one person that's excited to show their fucking pill case, because that's just not it.
I can show you 3 of them right now.
Well, that's because they're all your weird friends.
They're all my age.
But they're all your friends.
That's
the whole thing.
right.
Most
Which would
people
be
our age are
we.
not doing that.
I didn't say people our age. I said we, as in
Did.
I prefaced it. I said my friends and I. We. I didn't say people my age.
You said
we.
I'm at the age where.
Yes,
That's
where
not
my
a
friends
thing.
and I.
Okay, we done? You want to talk about what we're
You're just
actually
mad
here?
because my pill case was bigger than yours.
No, that's embarrassing. I definitely am not mad about that.
Mm.
Do you want to talk about who we'll be talking about, or do you want to keep this up? What would you like to do?
I think
I'll
I've
leave it up
proven-
to you.
I think I've proven my point.
Okay, great. Would you like to move on?
Sure,
Okay, great. Do you want to know who we're talking about?
that'd be helpful.
Okay. So we're going to be talking about a guy named Ivan Milat. I apologize if I say his name wrong. He's from Australia. I think it's Milat. Milat. Could be Milat. I'm saying Milat, though, for the whole entire episode. Because when I researched him, I talked to myself. And when I said his name out loud, it was always came out as Milat, no matter what I decided to say. So Ivan Milat is nicknamed the Backpack Killer or the Backpack Murderer. He has 7 or more victims, and the dates of his murders are 1989 to 1993. The location of this backpack murderer is New South Wales, Australia. His method of murder is shooting and stabbing, and a characteristic of not really his murders, but of him, is rape. It's not really of the murders, though. He was born, so Ivan Milat was born December 27th, 1944 in Guildford, New South Wales. He was the 5th born in his family of 14 children.
Damn.
You say that, but like in my family, my mom comes from 8 and my dad comes from 12. So for me, I was like 14 just okay.
Yeah, and when I met you, I went, damn.
Yeah, we got a big family. Big families are the best. Big families are the best. Shout out to the big families out there.
Yeah, they're so good. When most families say, we got one of those, you can say you have 2.
Now, for the most part, the parents tried to raise the family like as best as they could. They did send the kids to an all-Catholic school, but they were like extremely poor, as a family of 14 most likely would be. And it was stated that like they were very strict. Not really abusive, but fairly strict, especially the father.
I feel like that was a common theme when you look at the years of
In the 40s?
when he was born. Yeah, I feel like during that time, larger families were common, I think.
Well, that's because they didn't have birth control.
Right.
I mean, they did, but they didn't use birth control
They
at all.
also, if they went to a Catholic school.
They were
they're
Catholic, so
yeah,
they wouldn't have probably believed in birth
exactly.
control.
And back then, you kind of tie with the Catholic that the parents are strict.
Well, yeah, and they not only were they strict, but like it was also noted that Ivan Milat's father had like a mean streak because he was an alcoholic. I swear to God, that's how it always is. Like the dad's mean because he drinks too much. Like fucking stop drinking, bro.
Back then, I feel like they were onto something. That's how they coped.
I don't know. But like I said, by all accounts, the parents actually worked fairly hard and they were strict with their family. Like the dad worked all the time. The mom was basically always pregnant. That was the one downfall is you could be as strict as you want to, but when you have a family of 14 and your dad's always working, your mom's always pregnant, like what can you do, right? Ivan was actually fond of hunting. Actually, I think all the boys in his family, they all learned how to like hunt. They had guns, all this stuff. So he was a fan of hunting and he was fascinated with guns from a young age. Like, he took a real liking to guns at a young age. Now, he was also described as an athletic, attractive boy who took extra measures to make sure that he always looked good. So he wasn't like, even though they were poor, they weren't dirty and they weren't neglected. Like, the family, for the most part, did what they needed to do. Ivan himself wanted to always look put together. Now, as the boys of the family, I believe there were 6 of them. There might have been 7. As the boys got older, they actually became very well known to the police department because they were little shitheads. They got into a lot of trouble, as the kids did in the 40s and 50s. They just did shitty things. Ivan in particular was constantly in trouble starting at the age of 17. He actually did get charged with things like armed robbery, burglary, and he actually went to juvenile detention center at 17 years old for burglary. And then at 19, he was involved in a shop break-in. Then he was sentenced to 18 months in 1964 for a B&E. And then a month after his release from the B&E, he gets caught for stealing a car, and he's sentenced to 2 years hard labor.
And just in case people don't know, B&E is breaking and entering.
Yeah. And then in September 1967, he's now 22 years old. So since the age of 17, he's literally been getting in trouble with the law for all these different kinds of things. He's actually sentenced to 3 years for theft, because I feel like he goes to juvie, which juvie sucks, but he goes to juvie, obviously doesn't learn his lesson, gets in trouble for breaking into like a store, gets 18 months for that, steals a car, gets 2 years hard labor, but yet he's still doing these things. And so there at 22, he gets caught stealing, and they're like, okay, enough with like the little shit. Let's give you 3 years in prison. Okay. So then on April 7th, 1971. So this is like 3.5 years later. So he's out of prison and he's moving on with his life. He actually abducts 2 young female hitchhikers near Liverpool railway station. Now he holds them at knife point and he rapes one of the women before they were able to escape. Now the women escape. They go and tell the police. They give a description of him, and he's caught actually fairly quickly. He is identified. They're like, holy, we know who this is, and they arrest him. Now, he is charged with 1 count of rape and 2 counts of armed robbery and kidnapping. Now, while he's awaiting his trial, he's not kept in jail, and he ends up getting involved in more robberies. He also faked his suicide at one point. He left his shoes at a well-known suicide spot in Australia. And so they thought he had committed suicide. Well, then he ended up leaving the country after that. So like he's like calculating this out. So he leaves the country. Well, he ends up coming back, but he comes back under like a fake name, fake visa. Obviously, I mean, he's still in contact with his family and stuff, but like nobody they don't know where he is. He died, whatever. Now, he does end up getting caught in 1974 because his mother has a heart attack and she has to go to the hospital, and he shows up at the hospital and they realize that she's there and he's there.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Now, due to shoddy ass police work and shitty ass investigations, the rape and robbery kidnapping charges are dropped and he's not charged with anything. I have no idea what they did wrong. They didn't state it, but they basically said it was literally the police's fault as to why those charges did not stick for him. So then in 1975, he takes a job as a truck driver.
Ooh, there it is.
I literally, in my notes,
just after we talked about that too.
In my notes, I literally have for real, like for real. He is a truck driver. Okay. Now he stays working off and on for the trucking company for 20 years. So like he'll work, then he won't work, but it's the same company and he's just like doing his thing. Well, in 1977, he actually attempts to rape and murder 2 other women, but he is unsuccessful. And again, he's never charged for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe they couldn't stick the identity to him. Maybe not enough evidence. I have no idea. But again, that's twice now that he has kidnapped, raped, and tried to harm women, and he has not been held responsible. So we know where this is headed. Well, we do anyways, because we know we talk about serial killers. So cool.
Yeah.
Then in 1984, he actually gets married. He finds this woman, he marries her, and it does not last very long because he's abusive as shit. And so she's like, I'm not doing this. So she leaves him. Well, he ends up burning down her parents' home because that's just what he does.
Bro, and if our daughter's listening, like, pick your dudes right, because I don't want my house burned down. Because
Listen, you can burn my house down. I don't give a shit. I'll collect the insurance money. But I'm not even playing right now. Like, what? And then, by the way, just because we all know that we do serial killers that get caught. So this is just a side note. When he gets caught and goes to trial, she actually testifies against him and talks about how he's a crazed, obsessed gun owner. Okay, so just that's what her version is of him. And like, she was married to him for a hot minute, right? So let's believe her.
mm-hmm.
So this brings us to September 19th, 1992. The bodies of Caroline Clark, who's 21, and Joanne Walter, who's also 21, are found. Now, they are discovered by two runners in Belanglo State Park. Now, the two women bodies that were found, they had actually gone missing in April of 1992 from King's Cross in Sydney, Australia. Now, again, that was April, and this is September, so this is quite a few months later. So the police come. They originally the runners find one body, and they're like, holy shit! I mean, it's like a decomposing body, right? So they look at this body. They start kind of searching just like around the area, and they end up finding another body. And so they're like, hold on. Well, they use dental records. As soon as they find these bodies, first thing they do is take dental impressions, use dental records, and figure out who they are, and realize these women have been missing since April. Now, they know instantaneously that it's not accidental. They know that there's definitely
It's not natural causes.
They know there's definitely foul play because Joanne had been stabbed 14 times.
Yeah, that's
14 times.
Indicator.
Yep. She was stabbed once in her neck, 9 in her back, and 4 to her chest. Now, the one that was in her neck would have, they don't know. I mean, obviously they don't know if that was the first or
what
the last.
What order it was in. Yeah.
But that one would have paralyzed her. So they're in their brain, I'm sure they think she was stabbed in the neck first, paralyzed, boom, 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 right? Now, Carolyn, on the other hand, had been shot in the head 10 times. So stabbed 14, shot 10. Okay? And they're just like, what in the holy hell is going on? They start looking around and they're like, okay, we've cleared the area. There's no other bodies. Okay, like, this fucking sucks. So then in October of 1993, so this is a year later, there were bones that were found in the same forest, same Belanglo State Park. Police end up discovering 2 more bodies. After these bones are discovered, they're like, okay, so they start doing a search and they find 2 bodies, except for these bodies are skeletal remains, obviously. But they are able to identify that they are James Gibson, who is 19, and Deborah Everest, who is also 19, and they had actually disappeared in 1989. So this is like 4 years later. Now, James actually had similar wounds to his neck, and he had also been stabbed in the chest and the back of his skeleton. In the back of on his back. He they don't have the skin, but they can tell by where the knife, like they can see knife marks and stuff. Now his skeleton, this is so sad. His skeleton was found in the fetal position. He was 19.
So he died curled up.
Yeah. And Deborah they could tell that Deborah had been severely beaten. Her skull was fractured in 2 places. Her jaw was broken. She had knife marks in her forehead, and she had been stabbed once in the back. Which again, they were talking about one of the stab wounds that James that they had found would have paralyzed him. And so the police now are confused because what they're confused about is these 2 bodies being found. Not only is it 4 years later, so that's fucking weird, especially because they had come out there and searched the year before. They had searched this area because there was 2 bodies that were already found out there. So they're a little confused about that, but they're also confused because James's camera was found December of 1989, so the year they went missing, and then his backpack showed up March 13th of 1990 on the side of the road at Galston Gorge, which is over 120 kilometers or 70 miles north of this park.
Oh, it almost sounds like somebody who's driving truck.
Well, or more importantly, like you're trying to throw them off the trail of where the bodies would be, right? And so, but this is why they're confused because they're like, this whole time we've been looking for these backpackers. Because again, now you're starting to see these are all people who are backpacking. They're all people who have gone on these trips, right? They're hikers. And so they're like, we've been looking for these people like 75 miles north of where their bodies are found. This is really bizarre. So then on November 1st, 1993, so this is the next month, there's a skull just a skull, is found in the same forest, in the same area. And this is actually later identified to be Simone Schmidl, who is 21. She was also another missing hiker. Now, they ended up finding her skeleton as well. So they see this skull. They obviously start searching. They find a skull. They find her skeleton. And they find that she has wounds to her spine and her body totaling at least over 8 wounds. Again, noting that one of them to the spine would have paralyzed her. Now, there was clothing that was found near her skeleton or her skeletal remains. And they looked at it and they were like, whatever. And they realized this isn't her clothing. So this is somebody else's clothing. They end up discovering that it's the clothing of Anya Habschied, who is also another missing backpacker. And she had actually disappeared along with her boyfriend, Gabor Neugbauer, in 1991. So now they're like, oh my God. Okay, so we have these women who just went missing. We have people that were missing from like 4 years ago. Now we find this woman who's missing, and we now have found the clothing of another woman and her boyfriend who went missing in 1991. And here we are in 1993. Okay, so now they're like, November 3rd night, because now they're searching. They're like, okay, if we see the clothes, the bodies have to be here. So on November 3rd, 1993, the bodies of Anya, who's 20, and Gabor, who is 21, are found. Now, Anya had been decapitated, and to this day, her head has never been found. And Gabor had been shot 6 times in the head. Okay. So obviously police are like, what? Something's going on. So they create a task force. As they're creating their task force and they're talking to coroners and they're talking about stuff, they find that the evidence had showed that some of the victims had actually been tortured as well. So they didn't just like quickly get stabbed and killed. Some of them had suffered from torture. Now on October 14th of 1993, there was a task force that they had created of more than 20 detectives. Okay. But I want to side note this. They created the task force on October 14th. They didn't find the bodies of Anya or Gabor until November 3rd. And they didn't find the body of Simone until November 1st. They had already made the link between the 2 women that had been found and then the 2 bodies that had been found that had been missing for 4 years. So they had decided like the fact that you have 4 people who have all died in very similar manners and their bodies are all in the same exact spot, but same area, tells us that there's something going on. So they started to create this thing. Then they start finding more and more and more, right? They did take it upon themselves to really investigate and search the forest, and they didn't find anything else at that point. However, they wanted to, I guess, figure it out. So the New South Wales government decided that they were going to put out a reward for 500,000 Australian dollars. For which I looked it up. United States money is worth less, so I don't remember exactly what it was, but it's hundreds of thousands of dollars still. It was like $200,000 or $300,000. So they want to have this reward that they're giving to the public, asking for help figuring out who in the fuck is doing these things. Now they end up doing a profile because again, they have over 20 detectives that are really focusing on this. They come up with a profile and they give it to the public. Well, that profile triggers a shit ton of people to call. And they end up having a list of 230 suspects, which first of all,
their profile, everybody's going to look at their friends. They're going to look at family. They're going to look at anybody for the chunk of that
Yeah, but
money.
I sit there and I'm like, you feel like 230 people in that area could be a serial killer? That's fucking great.
Well, I mean, I think also because they found the other bodies 70 miles north, they probably opened up the area to be pretty big.
Yeah, so Now, they were able to use some new age equipment for the 90s, and they were able to like input stuff and yada, all the things. And they were actually able to narrow it down to a list of 32, which is much more manageable.
A lot easier.
So on November 13th, 1993, so this is literally 8 days after they have given this reward or have announced this reward. It's about 10 days after they have really started to dig into, we found even more bodies, right? So this is what's happening. There's a man, his name is Paul Onions, and he actually had called, why are you laughing?
It's a great last name.
So he had actually called the police, and he had reported that back in 1990, he was actually attacked by a man whose name was Bill. He just knew him by Bill. That was all he knew. And he said that he had been in Australia backpacking. Now he's from London or from England. So he's actually in England. He sees this stuff going on because it's now like big time news. And he's like, hold on. I literally was backpacking in Australia fucking 3 years ago. And like somebody tried to kill. Okay, I got to get in on this. So he calls them and he's basically like, yeah, I was in Australia. I was backpacking and I had gotten off the train and I think he was hitchhiking, but whatever. He was hitchhiking because he was trying to get to the Belanglo State Park because that's where a lot of people backpack. And so that's where he was headed. And so this man pulls up and he's like, do you want to ride? And the guy was like, yeah, sure, of course. And so he jumps in with this guy, which I don't know what world y'all live in, but I will not be hitchhiking. I never in my life wanted to hitchhike because I heard scary stories from when I was like 10. So I don't know why the fuck we are hitchhiking, people. Don't get in the car with strangers.
Free-spirited
or not. That's like killer 101. Don't get into a car with a stranger. Like, just walk. If you're there, just walk or fucking get a taxi. Anyways, so he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. So they're getting close to the park and all of a sudden the guy kind of pulls over off to the side of the road, but they're not where they're supposed to be. And Paul Onion said, my radar went off. Like I was like, something's going to happen. Something's not right. So I was prepared. And he said that the man turns and pulls a gun on him and he has ropes in his hand. And he's like, this is a robbery or whatever. Like I'm going to steal whatever from you.
Oh, Bill.
And so he was like, the fuck you are. So he ran. He opened the door and fucking ran. Now, one thing I did read about Paul is he is ex-Navy or something. So maybe that had something to do with it, but he didn't stick around to find out if he was actually going to get shot. Right. He just ran. Well, lo and behold, Bill starts shooting at him as he's running. He does not get shot. He evades. He runs like fucking shit. Well, he sees this other car coming down the road and he flags the car down. And he's like screaming and he's telling him like, let me in. This guy's trying to kill me. And it happens to be this woman and her name is Joanne Barry. And she like lets him in the car. He jumps in and she fucking speeds off like hell. Bravo, Joanne. Although again, I'm going to tell you right now.
Your ass would have just drove on by.
I would never have stopped.
You'd have been like, nope.
I'm the worst. I was reading this going, good for you, Joanne. But not Bill. Onions, Paul, if you would have come to my car, I most definitely would have drove right past you. I would not have stopped to help you because in my mind, you're the killer trying to kill me. Okay, so good on you, Joanne, for having faith in humanity because I don't. So anyway, so she gets in the car. They drive off. So he's telling this story to the police that are in this task force, the detectives. And they're like, well, can you describe the man? And he's like, yeah, I can describe the man. I can describe the car he was driving. So they get this information and then they turn around and they call Joanne. They get her information. They call her and she corroborates everything. She's like, oh, hell yes. This is that was a scary night, right? Okay, so tell me why they have all this information. And it takes until April 13th of 1994. So like 6 months later is when they actually do something with this information, right? I don't know why. So what happens is somebody's going through like notes and they're kind of re-looking like what are we missing? And somebody sees there's like a note that's talking about a phone call from this guy who says he was attacked by a guy named Bill. And they have a description in a car. And so they're kind of like, what? And so they end up going back to the evidence area and they're like, can we see like the notes on this, like the actual phone call? And they were like, oh, well, it's kind of gone. We don't have it. And they're like, that's great. So they end up kind of doing some digging and find out that one of the officers that had talked to Paul Onions actually had written it down like in his own notebook and still had the notebook. So they go and get the notebook from the guy to read to read the stuff that was written down. And they're like, okay, let's dig a little deeper into this information because we obviously need something. Well, it just so happens that around the same time, they had gotten a phone call from a woman who had said that she was thinking there might be a man they might be interested in looking into, and his name was Ivan Milat, and he actually works with her boyfriend, and he's kind of creepy. He kind of fits your description and your profile, so you might want to take a look at him. And so they, of course, go, well, he's about the only one we can really dig into. So yeah, let's take a good look at him. First thing they do is they look into his history, and they find that he has a history of abducting and raping women. So they're like, okay, cool. Then they ask Paul, hey, can you come back to Australia? We'd like your help with this investigation because you literally are like have first person knowledge of who this man is. And we have a suspect that we would like to see if you could identify him in a lineup. Okay. So he does. He flies back to Australia. He meets with the cops. He helps him. He tells them everything he can. They end up bringing Ivan.
Do you think they picked him up from like the airport, or do you think he hitchhiked to the police station?
I don't think he's ever hitchhiked again.
Just curiosity.
He ends up showing up at the police department, and they do a lineup. And he's looking at all these people, and he's like, they said, do you see the man who tried to kill you? And he said, yes, I do. They said, okay, who is? And he goes, it's number 4, which was Ivan Milat. And they were like, cool, thanks. On May 22nd, 1994, Ivan is arrested at his home. Now, they decide they're going to search his house. As they should, right? Because, like, why not? Because right now, all they have is Paul Onion's identification, which, to be fair, is worth a lot, but people have definitely gotten off of something much less than that. And so they were like, yeah, let's see if we can find anything else that will give us solid evidence that this guy is our guy. So they search his house, and he shares his house with one of his sisters. Okay. Now they find a multitude of items that link him to the murders in this house. They find a .22 caliber Anschutz model rifle. They find parts of a .22 caliber Ruger rifle, which just happened to be the same thing that was used on some of the people who were killed. They found a Browning pistol, a Bowie knife. They found weapons that matched the ones that were used on victims. They found foreign currency. Now, the reason that's important is because Ivan had never been out of the country, and yet he had, I think it was India. He had currency from India, and they were like, have you ever been out of the country? He's like, no. And they're like, that's weird, because 2 of the backpackers had just come back from India when they disappeared. So that was weird. They also found clothing that was actually from some of the victims. They found a tent from one of the victims, a sleeping bag from one of the victims, camping equipment from the victims, and cameras that also belonged to these victims. So obviously he did it. They also then decide they're going to search his mother's home and some of his other family members' homes as well. My guess is they lived all in close vicinity of each other, because I don't know why that would be a thing. And they did that, and they actually found 24 weapons, 250 kilograms of ammo, and more items that belonged to the victims in these other homes. Okay. May 31st, Ivan is charged with 7 murders. July 27th of 1996, he is actually found guilty of the murders, and he was given a life sentence for each one of the murders without the possibility of parole. So you figure that's 7 life sentences without the possibility of parole. He was given 6 years for attempted murder, 6 years for false imprisonment, and 6 years for robbery of Paul Onion. Throughout all of this, he maintained his innocence and said that he did not do this. He never did this. It's not him. Now, on October 27th of 2019, Ivan Milat dies in prison of esophagus and stomach cancer. He was 74 years old.
Well, in this case, the justice system worked.
Kind of. Because they're shots. Would you like to hear them?
I feel like I always say something that goes right into the shots.
So, first of all, some of Ivan's siblings. Okay, so again, remember, he comes from a family of 14 siblings. Now, one of his brothers in particular is the only one that has ever spoken out against him. Pretty much the rest of his family has I don't know if they necessarily supported him, but they've never said anything like damning against Ivan. So one of his brothers said, Ivan showed antisocial and psychotic tendencies as a kid. Like, he used to attack animals with machete. And he said that he had been told this by some of Ivan's friends. Is like, oh my God, like, he fucking just chopped this animal in half, right? So he said that, and he said, and he goes, and it always went unnoticed. He also said, this is quote, he said that he felt that he was going to kill somebody from the age of 10. It was built into him. I knew he was on a one-way trip, and I knew that it was just a matter of how long. So that's what one of his brothers has said about
So
him.
you're just sitting back and waiting.
Yeah. Well, if he's the only one who feels this way, then, who are you going to tell? Ivan has a great nephew, and his great nephew is named Matthew. Now, Matthew decided that because his mom was a Milat, even though his last name was not Milat because his mom got married, but he changed his name to Milat when he found out about his uncle Ivan, his great uncle Ivan. He decided he wanted to be known as Matthew Milat, and he also became a killer. Ivan was actually not happy when he found out that Matthew Milat had killed and was going to jail for murdering a friend of his, basically. He didn't become a serial killer, but he most definitely was a murderer. Here's where it gets a little, There have been thoughts that there were 2 serial killers. And why would that be? Well, because all of the victims that were killed were in pairs, and they were all killed differently, and they were all buried separately. They were always found buried differently, and they were not all killed the same way. And so their big thought has always been, well, how did Ivan kill 2 people? How did he kill 2 people? Now for me, I go, well, he incapacitated one right away. That would be my thought, because he always had, one of them had like a severed whatever in their neck or whatever that made it to where they were paralyzed. So it could be that he just surprised. But in my mind, I do think, and I do wonder, because if you're in pairs, okay, first of all, it is really hard for one person to attack 2 people, especially the ones that have male and female. And I don't mean this as anything other than males typically are a little bit stronger than females. These were all healthy hikers who were probably pretty strong. To be able to incapacitate and kill 2 people does make you wonder, was there somebody else?
But if he's got a gun on one of them.
But only twice did he shoot. Out of the 7 victims, only 2 of them he shot. The rest of the time it was all knives. And I mean, one of them, he beat the shit out of the girl and then stabbed her. So I'm sitting here thinking, throughout the whole thing, I kept thinking, well, why are they killed? Why is he killing in pairs? And also, why are the bodies not buried together? And why are they killed? All of them completely different. Not completely different from each other, but there's always one that is like their neck is like they're stabbed in the neck in a certain area that will incapacitate them. And then they're stabbed a bunch of times. And then he either shoots the other one or beats the other one up, or very different MOs, which you don't typically find in one serial killer. It's normally 2. Now, while Ivan was in prison, he was known to do some pretty crazy shit. So like number 1, he like cut off his finger with the intent of sending it to the high court because he wanted to prove his innocence, I guess. Maybe DNA is what he was trying to do, but he cut off like his pinky finger. And they brought him to like the hospital in the prison, and the doctors were like, yeah, tough shit, boy. Can't fix it. So he went, he cut off his finger and it couldn't even be reattached. Okay. So there's that. He swallowed razor blades. He swallowed staples. He swallowed anything that was a metal object that he could at any time. He also went on a hunger strike and lost 25 kilograms. I forgot to look up what that is in weight. So he lost a bunch of weight. And his reason for that hunger strike, though, is a pretty fucking good reason, I think. He wanted a damn PlayStation, and so he starved himself.
Hell yeah. PlayStations are nice.
And he never got it.
No, hell no.
Bravo prison. So there, he did that kind of shit. And here's the final shot, and this is the part where I'm like, okay. July 18th of 2005. Ivan Milat's former lawyer was dying, and he was on his deathbed, and he decides he's going to give a deathbed confession, which is fucking awesome, I think, because lawyers are sworn to never tell what their people say, right? Well, he's dying. And because hold on. Before I get into that, they actually went and saw Ivan multiple fucking times. They knew he was dying. Well, he was basically on hospice in this bed, right? The detectives went to him multiple times to ask if there was anything he wanted to admit to, because he swore he didn't kill these people, and he did not ever admit to anything. The only thing he kept saying was, I did not do this. Okay. So no deathbed confession. However, his former lawyer decided he would give a deathbed confession. And what he said was that Ivan was assisted by his sister Shirley. She's the one he lived with in the murders of the 2 British women backpackers that were found. That started this whole entire thing.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And so he says that. And I'm sitting here going, I'm telling you, I think she was in on it the whole time. Now, the other thought process was a lot of people say that Shirley may have assisted him in the 2 British backpackers, but they actually think that he had a brother. He had a bunch of brothers, but one brother in particular, they actually think he was in on it because on one of the times where the women were abducted and attempted to rape, they actually put like a picture lineup in front of the girls and they were like, okay, can you point out who did this? And they pointed to both of them and said it was them. So there is a chance that this was a family fucking ordeal. And that's why nobody in his family will speak out against him except for the one brother who probably isn't part of it.
Yeah, and he probably kept his mouth shut because he didn't want to narc on anybody in the family, but just kept saying he didn't do it.
Well, yeah. Or that was my other thought. So my other whole entire thought was maybe Ivan really didn't kill anybody, but maybe Ivan knew. Because, his brother looks a lot like him. Maybe Ivan was just like keeping it to himself. However, that's a little far-fetched for me because, again, he lives in this house with his sister where there is all this shit from all these people he has killed. And there's, first of all, the fact that come on. Okay,
no, I'm saying that he did do it, but what he's saying is he didn't do it. Like he wasn't the only one.
No, I think
he's not going to tell on his family.
I think that too. I think that when he says I didn't do this, I think he was referencing the fact that he didn't do it alone, but he wasn't going to tell. And the fact that there was stuff found at his mom's house, his brother's house, the house he lives with his sister, it makes a hell of a lot more sense. And the fact that this is like, again, all of them were killed in 2s. So was this one of those situations where it was like a family that murdered? I don't know. They even have I even saw a picture of his mom and she was there when he got arrested. She was like an older woman, but she was watching him get arrested and everything. And again, I'm a mother of 2 children. I'm going to tell you right damn now, if you come to my house and you search my house and you find shit from a victim that my son killed, first of all, my son's already dead to me. My son's I am not fighting for him. And guess what I'm not doing? I'm not hiring a lawyer for him. I'm going to say my piece with the fact that I created a piece of shit monster and I'm going him on my merry way. I mean, not really. It's devastating as fuck. But I'm not going to stand there and stand up for him. And I'm not going to sit there and keep my mouth shut if I think that he did something wrong. The fact that the whole damn 14 children other than one, and when the one brother came out and said, like, no, he definitely was psychopathic from childhood. All of the other family members were like, no, he was not. You're lying. Basically, you're a liar. So it's like, But this guy did it. You know he did because why would you have so much shit in your house from people who died? And they even had like a picture. And I have no idea where they got the picture from, but it's a picture of Ivan walking and he's carrying a sleeping bag and a tent from one of the victims. So I don't know where they got the picture from. So I'm like, that's interesting.
Somebody had to take it.
Right. So, anywho, now I actually don't know, but I'm pretty sure that Shirley also has passed away. So she wouldn't be able to be charged. I think she actually passed away before he did. She would not be able to be charged with anything, any like at all. But the fact, because I think she died in 2003 and this lawyer, deathbed confession, was 2005. Can you imagine? Like, when I read that, I sit there and I go, could you imagine if you're a defense lawyer? Think of the shit some of these people have heard that they are sworn to secrecy or they go to jail. So it's like, this is your job. You're your person. You know that person killed somebody. Think of the ones that have gotten their people off scot-free.
Oh, I think about that all the time.
Like, for real. O.J. Simpson's lawyers. Like, you get somebody off scot-free. Do you feel bad about it? Or do you not care because you got paid a fat amount of money for it? I don't know. Anyways, so that's the story of Ivan Milat, whatever. Ivan.
Well, it's a great story. And you think about families. There's been families in the past that have done it.
I'm waiting.
Look at Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That's not a real thing.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is based off of.
Yeah.
But it's not.
And
it's based off
family.
of a guy. No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't.
Yep. We'll talk about him in one of our upcoming episodes.
It's about a guy, but it's not about a family. It's about a guy. And there is actually a couple of families that I'm waiting. I am just waiting for them to be popping up in my book when I randomly pick, because there's I'm very interested in how families work. Like, it's just how does a whole family be serial killers? I don't really know.
I mean, if the parents are, you can raise your kids to be, probably.
I mean, I would assume so, but like at some point you would think that like your just normal ass conscience would take over and be like, this probably isn't right.
Yeah.
Anyways, that is where we be at for this. That's all I have. Follow us on all of our socials as usual. And I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but they are talking about a TikTok ban, which if TikTok goes away, then you won't find us on TikTok anymore. But we'll still be on Insta, and we'll still be on X and
we'll
Facebook.
Still be doing this.
And we'll still be podcasting through Podbean, so it's fine.
And maybe in the future we'll add video. We'll see. It's a topic of conversation. I'm slowly coming around to it.
It's just so much.
We just
got to
get it set up and everything. But yeah, could have video coming, but we'll see. We shall see. Anyways, that is all for now. So I guess this is the time where I say thanks for joining us and learning about Ivan Milat. And I'm going to say goodbye. And I will, like always, say bye-bye.